As always, welcome to the Spector Creative channel. I'm your host, Scott Toy Guru Neitlich. And for those of you who follow the channel kind of long term, you may know that I record most of my videos about 30 days before they air. But usually some videos, especially the ones on Sunday afternoons, are kind of my time to do a video on what's happening in the now. So hence this being a Sunday afternoon video. Quick spoiler alert, because today we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff happening with Star Wars, especially Star Wars content. Well, actually really just this content, the Book of Boba Fett. So, spoiler alert aside, you've been properly warned, ye bi, and we're going to be discussing an episode that only aired a few days ago. I think we've had over 72 hours and we're now officially allowed to talk about it on the internet? Well, who knows? Well, actually, I guess if you're really thinking about it as a spoiler alert, we already learned that Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc pit last year because he showed up on the Mandalorian show, and the final little bug at the end of that show showed him taking over Jabba's palace. And even before that, he was throughout the whole season, well, at least the second half, showing up, doing badass things like, these kind of things, and, chopping at stormtroopers with gaffy sticks, and, looking all cool. I mean, he pretty much did everything except this. So, yeah, okay, Boba Fett's back and he survived the Sarlacc. I don't think that actually deserved the spoiler alert. So, where did we last leave off with Boba Fett then? Well, it was 1993 and he was doing cool stuff on the Sarlacc pit battle until, well, this happened, and then this happened, and then McClunky, and he winds up getting swallowed by the Sarlacc, which got improved in 1997 with a beak that scared the bejeebas out of me. And if I think that was on there when I was a kid, the Sarlacc would have really creeped me out. Not that it didn't already, but sorry, I'm a kid of the 80s. This is what the Sarlacc pit looks like, no beak. So, yeah, beak was cool, though. All right, regardless, okay, it creeped me out. No one wants to have Audrey 2 inside of the Sarlacc pit. It makes it way less fun. It makes it creepy. It takes away the fun. Okay, well, speaking of fun, yeah, fans have actually really embraced the Sarlacc pit, and love for it shows in all categories of toys, from games, from the homemade to the professional, official licensed version. It's a good setting for fun, especially on Etsy when you could buy this item for your baby. Well, obviously, action figures have used this scene to sell action figures, and this was one of the cooler ones. In fact, it's the only toy we've ever actually gotten of the Sarlacc. Now, as far as the creator of Star Wars, George Lucas, he's had a lot to say about Boba Fett's death, and I'll actually play a quick video from Star Wars Explained. It gives a good quote from a
Wayne
cast member.
Dunham had to say in the book The Making of Return of the Jedi. George was somehow disappointed with who Boba Fett had become. I don't know whether it was the way it was shot, but Boba didn't measure up to some standard George had, and he was adamant, just throw him in the pit.
All right, I shouldn't have said cast member. I should have said team member, because that was the special effects. All right. So, Boba Fett, yes, he was very important to George. I get why him not coming out the way he wanted it to would have, been an issue, because Boba Fett was in development very early on, premiering at this promotional parade in Northern California before the film. So, yeah, I mean, George Lucas, totally respect why he wants to change the film, make it more his vision with, modern special effects, and amen, bless, just put a version out there for easily accessible format, easily accessible to fans, the original theatrical cuts. That's all you got to do. Just keep those out there, and you can make all the changes you want. Okay. Well, regardless, yes, Boba Fett in development for a long time, going back to Episode 4, what became A New Hope, and so much so that parade version was what was actually used by Kenner to design the figure, which is why he has much brighter colors than most other Boba Fetts. It's not quite, and this was supposed to be Empire Boba Fett, not even Jedi. Eventually, a very clever brand manager would use the deco from the parade that inspired the original Kenner figure on a Big Figs toy at Jack's. But let's FF forward to modern times, and it's actually interesting to conclude George Lucas's thoughts on Boba Fett's death with his modern take. He's gone on the record, and here I'll quote, "If I had known he was going to become such a popular character, I probably would have made it a little more exciting," referring to Boba Fett's death. So I think that, yeah, fans have fallen in love with him. Even George Lucas has fallen in love with him, even if it didn't meet his original expectations, or they couldn't get it out quick enough for Episode 4. And he was a first a disappointment. But it doesn't mean the fans haven't been asking the same darn Star Wars what-if question for decades now. What if Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc? It's been done by fans. It's been done by professionals. It's a theme of a lot of Boba Fett, what now I guess would be looked at as the Legends collection from how Disney classifies it. But this was a moment that captured hearts and minds. And I mean, this is my office. I have Boba Fett escaping from the Sarlacc there. And, you know, I mean, I very carefully chose which Boba Fett was going to be there, the one with the most escapage gunk on him. We'll get to that down the road on this video. But yeah, it's a beloved moment because we all know how badass Boba Fett is and he's got all that gear, so he should be able to blast out. All right, let's look in the rearview mirror and kind of look at the history of the different iterations of Boba Fett officially and, well, otherwise escaping. So by default, we have to look at the Star Wars Marvel comics from the 80s. They were first.
Default! Woohoo! The two sweetest words in the English language!
And in particular, issue 81, which is interesting because not only did it have one of the most amazing cover designed by the Hillenburg brothers, which was very different from the other covers, it had one of the more intriguing stories, which was called The Jawas of Doom. Like the Jaws of Doom, I guess. So yeah, the Jawas discover the wreckage of the sail barge. Obviously, that's going to be heard for, you know, at least half a mile, maybe more. Okay, probably like, you know, miles and miles of desert. Anyway, it draws everyone, and of course it draws the Jawas. Ooh, I love 80s alien talk, like the way they did it in Valerian, too. That's awesome. So they dig him up, and, yeah, you know, he gets his noggin together, and now he's back. Boba Fett's back. So this was commemorated in a 2-pack, so that's what I was alluding to earlier. That was Boba Fett and the purple protocol droid that helps him get his sort of senses back together. And, yeah, this was a no-brainer buy for me, even though I wasn't a huge buyer of the comic packs. Man, having Boba Fett from this story and with a purple protocol droid, I mean, I do have a thing for purple action figures. So yeah, that's the one, that's why that was the one that I put in my diorama, and it's still there. All right, so let's go forward again to now Dark Empire. We saw how Marvel Comics rescued Boba Fett out of the Sarlacc pit. Well, the next major player in Boba Fett Resurrection canon was the Dark Empire comic from Dark Horse Comics. And to say this was a game changer and mind-blowing when it first came out, that there's been, I'm sure, many, many hours of YouTube and fan discussion. It was familiar, yet different. It was Star Wars. Everything was broken. There were space battles. And it brought up also a lot of themes and story content plot points that have shown up, like the Emperor cloning himself to make new bodies. I think that's what happened in Rise of Skywalker, right? I don't think they ever explained it in the movie, and I haven't caught up with, like, the comics. All right, well, for me, the coolest moment in the whole thing was when Luke faces off against sort of a version of an AT-AT, or AT-AT, as my generation would call them. God, I'm old. So this, for some reason, this moment just absolutely spoke to me, captured me as a child. The AT-AT comes up, it blasts at Luke. Luke just totally deflects blaster fire from an AT-AT. I mean, that's like, you know, you don't have to be more badass than that. But oh wait, no, then he reflects his own blaster fire back at the AT-AT, blowing it up, and is General Jedi Master badassery, even than using the Force to fully collapse it. Because that's what Jedi Master Luke does. That's how Jedi Master Luke takes down a walker. Ah, if only we could see that in film. That would be awesome. All right, so besides that being my favorite moment, the moment that's really stuck around with pop culture wasn't Luke taking down a AT-AT. It was with, well, the guy we're talking about in this video, Boba Fett. He's back. He just kind of shows up and spooks the heck out of Solo and the reader, who was not expecting this at the time. So yeah, with a simple hello, he doesn't just say hi to Han Solo, but he's basically addressing the reader that Boba Fett's back. Are we going to find out how he got out? Heck no. It's just going to be that the Sarlacc found him somewhat indigestible. That was it. That's all we got. That's all we needed. It was the perfect line. Yes, of course we all knew Boba Fett could get out. He's got all those gadgets and rockets and everything. And it's no wonder he got slapped on the cover during the Dark Empire 2 series. So yeah, Boba Fett sells. He's cool. Everyone loves Boba Fett. In fact, Robot Chicken obviously loves Boba Fett, so I wanted to throw this one in. And yeah, maybe I'm a little biased because I've had a working relationship and a personal relationship with the creators of Robot Chicken. Actually, that's kind of a crazy story. I don't even know if I've mentioned it. My wife went to school with Matt Senrich's wife, and they've known each other for years. And we all bumped into each other at a convention and realized that our wives knew each other, and it was just hilarious. Anyway, they did a whole Boba Fett and the Sarlacc pit thing, and it's awesome. And if you've never seen it, check it out because it's comedy gold. I know it's not canon. All right, next up, we got to talk about toys. I mean, this channel talks a lot about toys, and I haven't mentioned toys quite enough in this video yet, right? Toys, 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 toys. Wait, we showed that Boba Fett toy, actually, too, earlier. All right, well, right now, if you haven't guessed, we're talking about the Unleashed line, which came out around the time of episode 2-ish, and it featured pre-posed 6-inch-ish scaled Star Wars characters in real action-y poses. And a lot of times these were poses you couldn't really get with an action figure because of the way the arms, for example, might bend around a staff. And yeah, I don't think this action figure or toy would ever get made today, but that's not important. The point is, Unleashed was a line where we could see characters in their most awesomeness moment. And Boba Fett, when he was in this line, had one of the most awesomest of all the Unleashed figures. In fact, this is probably one of my top favorite Star Wars toys of all time, because it captures a moment that's not in the film. It captures a moment that was just in the fan imagination, done by Marvel, done by Dark Horse, done by Robot Chicken. The point is, Boba Fett got out, and this toy actually put that into a physical form that you could put on your desk, and that made it what's called having permanence. It's a big thing in the toy industry, allowing something to be made, especially that's based on a fan sort of dream, interpretation. We never actually saw Boba Fett do this. The idea of him blasting out of the Sarlacc pit was a wish, and to see that as a toy was awesome. Well, FF forward now to now, and we have now seen Boba Fett get out of the Sarlacc. Maybe it didn't exactly happen as you might think, but, you know, he basically got out in the way we all thought. It found him somewhat indigestible. The line still holds, and now Hasbro, of course, has mud-covered or sand-covered Boba Fett deco figures to sell. And they incorporated homages to so much, like the Jawas finding him. And again, that line still holds up. And obviously, Boba Fett captured the imagination of George Lucas, that he learned to love him, captured the imagination of fans from like 2 minutes and 8 seconds of screen time. I know there's a lot to be said about not knowing the origin, but, you know, that balloon was pretty much shattered years ago. Boba Fett's back on the table, and he's finally now officially out of the Sarlacc. And don't forget, this guy's out there too. So, you know, for those of you complaining about new Star Wars content, just remember, when I was a kid, the only new Star Wars content we had was starring this guy. So haters gonna hate, but we have awesome Star Wars content now. All right, that was a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do share it with others. It's the best way to help support the channel. Let me know what other topics you'd love to see discussed, and I always hit them in the comments as much as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.